Let's see. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cosplay Bites, the show about cosplays, conventions, and all the nerdy bits and bytes in between. This time around for this episode, I am joined again by the ever so wonderful Zach Fischer.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your cue.
Hey, I didn't prepare my dialogue. All right, so
Neither did I.
I'm winging it
here. We're winging it. How you doing?
You know what? I'm doing all right. I especially after the year we've had, I'm doing okay. How about you?
I've certainly had a year. But that's a fact. I am actually just like trying to just be the happiest I've ever been. And I got a new job and out of the hellhole that I've been in.
Man, all of that sounds amazing. Like it's incredible how just sometimes even a minor switch or change up in things can lead to like your whole life being better. It's a huge deal when something big happens. So it's like, yeah.
Getting back on a daytime schedule has been fantastic. So
what's daytime?
No longer have to work second shift.
What is daytime? Is that where the big fiery ball in the sky is up in the air?
You're not aware of daytime? Do you work in the night mainly?
Oh man, I don't even know anymore. What is time? What is time after this year?
Like... Exactly. So so this is another installment of my current sporadic, that's a better word, of series of where I interview people that I've had previously on the show, typically during this past year, because it changed everyone's lives upside down, not just content creators and cosplayers, pretty much everyone's lives upside down. But I was just taking a quick peek beforehand. The last time I had you on was almost 2 years ago in September.
Oh, man. I remember it because I was still in the temporary apartment that I was in while they were doing construction on my balcony, and so like all my stuff was like in the other, in my own apartment, and I was having to deal with the fact that I was basically in a bare bones like guest apartment for a while, and it's been crazy since then. It's just so it's good to be back in my own space, that's for sure.
Yeah, you've been sharing, at least on your Facebook. I don't know if you've been sharing anywhere else, but you're revamping your stream room.
Yeah,
make it look like a tavern, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like that was always the plan when we first moved in. We wanted to have every room be something different, and our some of the rooms were done immediately because we had to have them done immediately, like our living room and our dining room. They're all I painted the walls on it, all of them. Our kitchen is painted to be like almost like a candy kitchen with the striping on it, and but I just never got around to doing my stream room, which because I had to move my computer in right away to get to work. And when you do that, like everything kind of just finds its place. And it's like the thought of having to move everything again is kind of like, oh man, do I really want to do that right now? So luckily with the pandemic, it's like, well, it doesn't really matter if like things are everywhere right now. So like we've been kind of slowly making little, home improvements and stuff like that that have been kind of put off for a while. And but yeah, I kind of want the place to feel like a Hearthstone kind of tavern or like a D&D tavern, and so I'm painting that kind of like Tudor style, like wood beams on the inside and kind of griming up the walls nice, and at some point get some like gargoyle candle sconces and stuff like that.
Oh my god!
To really theme it out. I mean, my stream family on Twitch has really kind of come through for me. A lot of the things that I needed to make it happen, like shelving and switch plates for the light switches and stuff that was kind of customized. I put it on like an Amazon wish list, and earlier this year, a bunch of them started, a bunch of people on my stream started like just sending me stuff for it. And it got to the point where I'm like, well, I pretty much have everything I need now to kind of just get started, to get things going. So now it's just a matter of like all the little things that are left over on the list are kind of just more cosmetic. So all the functional stuff is taken care of, and that was really important. So
yeah,
it's a process though. It's grueling.
Yeah,
especially this week with all the painting. It's been rough.
Oh yeah, yeah. I actually just dove into started streaming on Twitch late last year.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of, on the other hand, like kind of ended writing for my blog because I was just driving home one night thinking like, because like no one's been making outfits this year, or if they have been, they haven't really been given an opportunity to like get photo shoots taken.
Right.
Really no cosplay for me to like feature, and I just didn't have the motivation to like write or do some research on it, and it was just like, even when cons come back, would I still find the motivation to like start it up again? And like, honestly, I don't think I would. And since streaming is taking a good chunk of my time, even though I'm just doing it for fun or giving myself another avenue to be a content creator, I've just been trying to just stick with that and the podcast to keep them going to see what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole cosplay scene has had to kind of change and evolve over the past year.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, for some people this is a hobby, right? But for other people, it's their whole career. It's everything that they do for money. And if you haven't set up, if you hadn't set up prior to have more of like a passive income revenue from like merch sales or tutorials or something like that, then it got really tough for people. But there's some great tutorials out there for how to kind of not just do cosplay, but to kind of set yourself up, as a business that some cosplayers have done during the pandemic, and the ones that have really put in making that happen are having a little bit of an easier time, or had a little bit of an easier time during the past year. But I think there's still a lot of people who this year either kind of knocked them out of the illusion that they were going to do this full time, or it cemented their idea that they have to, or gave them the time to really focus on it. So it's been kind of a transformative year for cosplay, just as it has for the rest of the the world. Without shows, it's like, well, how do you feature yourself as a cosplayer? How do you show off what you can do? So, and I mean, it affects everybody. It affects photographers and people who are selling crafting materials, and then me too. Like I didn't bother to take on new commissions this year, not only because I still had to kind of try to sort out the ones that I currently have left, but also because it's like I didn't know how long this was going to be, and it's like, how do you charge people for work when you don't know when the next time they'll be able to use it, So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I had to try to find other ways to make money this year, and it's been tough, to say the least. But things are starting to open back up here in California, and for the most part, people are doing a good job with getting vaccinated and social distancing again. They weren't doing that great of a job during the midst of the pandemic, which is why a lot of the times, like, for the most part, I just stayed locked in. Like, I know some people were like, oh, that 4-week period where everybody had to stay inside sucked. I'm like, I'm sorry, 4 weeks? What?
Yeah.
You mean you went back outside after that?
Yeah.
I mean, I've pretty much been having to stay inside because, my girlfriend London, she's more on the high risk category. She's got, asthma, and she's been hospitalized for it in the past. And so, we weren't messing around. We didn't want to mess around with the potential that, she could get, deathly ill. So I had to, when I was, I had to pick up a lot of the slack around the apartment, which normally, she would end up doing a lot of the trips to the grocery store, or, going to get gas, or, helping with taking the cats to the vet or whatever, like, while I would be working. And since she wasn't doing any of that, a lot of that fell on me. And, I was fine with that. I mean, anything I could do to keep her safe, but it took time. It took time away from being able to do artwork, and that, kind of cut into the income we were making. So, but yeah, I mean, it was, excuse me. It was kind of like, I don't know if you remember this, but, in I want to say like the late 2000s, mid to late 2000s, everybody was obsessed with those zombie survival tests that were on, like, floating around online and everything. Like, see how long you would live in a zombie survival guide, and like that kind of stuff. And
and
it was funny to me because there's so many of those people that were like, "Oh, I'd do great," and it's like, I saw them. Most of it was people from like my hometown and everything. They were like, "Oh, I would do great in a zombie survival situation," and then you'd see them, like, they'd end up getting COVID, or they would be going out without masks on and stuff, and then getting sick, and it was like, okay, yeah, sure, you would do fantastic, like,
yeah.
And it was a pretty revelatory year, I think, for a lot of people, not just in terms of, like, how vulnerable maybe their business situation was, but, also, like, kind of where people's, people that they were friends with, people that they knew, like, whether those people could be depended on to do kind of the right thing in a kind of a moment of vulnerability and emergency. And I think some of us really held together well, and some of us, didn't do so hot. Like, there were definitely people that were like, I kind of wanted to reach through the computer and be like, what the hell are you doing?
It's me with my family.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel so bad for this because I'm not like this, but I actually had to scold my mother earlier. The first time in my life, I actually had to, like, yell at my mother, and I've never done that in my life. But she went to mass. She went to church. No mask, no distancing or anything like that. It was relatively early on, and I flipped out. I flipped out on her. She's, approaching 70. She's pre-diabetic. So it was like, I freaked out at her.
Right.
And, like I said, it felt weird but I mean, it was like I had to do that. You get to a situation where it's like, you can't rely on people to do what is the smart thing necessarily. Like, they just go about showing you that they're doing the exact wrong thing, and it's kind of like, how am I the adult in this situation?
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was rough, and so I don't. There's a lot of people now that, even though people are vaccinated, they're kind of like, I'm still going to keep my mask available, and I'm gonna try to distance from people. And I totally get that inclination. I mean, London, my girlfriend and I, we're both vaccinated now, so we're ready to kind of rejoin the world, and we tend to follow the science. And if the science is saying, hey, if you've got both shots, and you've cleared that waiting period, you're totally fine to be around other vaccinated people. So we're following the science, and science is saying, okay, you're good, then that's what we're going to go with. But we totally understand people that still want to be hesitant and everything. So I know that for me, even once conventions return, I'm going to have a mask on me. I may not be wearing it all the time, but like if I get into a crowded elevator or if I get into...
I tend to do the same thing. Like sometimes like I'll have my mask on me, but at the very least it's in the car. Or sometimes I'll just take it with me and put it in my pocket just in case like whatever place I go into hasn't really like loosened up on their like mask wearing policy to whatever, because I'm fully vaccinated too. So I've been able to like at least go to work without having to wear a mask, and mostly everyone where I work has done the same thing. So
and I mean that I'm glad that neither myself or London has had a job where we had to be around the public, or that we had to be, because I mean we would have ended up having to leave it. Like I had family members, I had friends that had to basically quit the job that they'd been in for a long time because they're like, well, they're trying to keep us, they're trying to force us to continue working, and they're not really giving us any means of staying safe. This is earlier on. Where a lot of them ended up having to quit. And it was like, well, I mean, it's, sure, you want to have your job, but you also want to live. Like,
right.
And it's a pretty easy choice, so, but yeah, I mean, I'm happy that things are going to be kind of going back to normal. There are some conventions for later in the year that are planning to kind of go back to, normal. And I think that's okay. I find it weird that there are still people out there that don't want to get vaccinated, because at this point it's like, well, guys, at this point, you're the only ones you're really hurting with it. Like, vaccines have been available to everybody for months now. And yes, there are some people that can't be vaccinated, and I feel really bad for those people. And I wish there was something that could be done. Like, I would, if it were up to me, I think that, I think there should be some sort of like vaccine passport or something. Like, I think the best way to phrase it, honestly, is a vaccine verification, where you can say, yeah, I'm vaccinated. Here's my proof.
Yeah.
Like we already do that for so many things. Like, you can't go to school. Like, there are plenty of private schools in this country that you can't go to school. You can't be in the Boy Scouts or something unless you had certain vaccines, and you do that for public safety. So why people are suddenly getting all bent out of shape over the idea that, oh, I don't want to have my papers, like it's some sort of weird fascist state. It's like, we already do that. Like, you can't go driving your car without your license. You can't go and go into a bar without showing that you're 18, like, or that you're that you're 21. So it's like, why draw the line here where it's very obvious why this is being done? Like, it just, none of it makes any sense. Like,
our country turned it into a political statement. That's what the problem is.
I mean, that's,
yeah.
Yes, like, it's been doing that. We've been divided way longer than I think most people realize. But and it's not even along left and right. It's the divide is between as far as what I'm seeing, it's between kind of cities and rural areas. And when you look at the breakdown of the 2020 election here in the U.S., you see that like every major city went one way and all of the rural areas in the country went another. And I think we need to figure out why that is. We need to figure out what it is that's so that's so drastically different between those areas that is causing that weird divide to occur. So
right.
I mean, I've got some ideas, but I don't want to turn this into a political discussion. So I mean, I just wanted to put it out there because we're talking pandemic, and it's hard to talk about that without there being some sort of mention of why we did. So anyway.
So are you in the mindset of feeling comfortable going back to con at the very least for next year?
Oh yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I mean, if there was an in-person con, a few months from now, that invited me to come, and they were saying, we're urging everybody to have masks when they're indoors or in a crowded spot, and everybody should be vaccinated. Then I'll be like, yeah, I'm on board. I'd love to get back to it. I think that I'm excited for like Anime Expo. That one, it's usually mostly outdoors anyway. Like most of the fun stuff is outdoors anyway. Like,
oh really?
The stuff that I enjoy doing, like hanging out with cosplayers and seeing the cosplays. It's a lot of that's usually outdoors. And then like BlizzCon next year, I think it was a good idea for Blizzard to kind of say hey, it's too early to really be able to do a BlizzCon for 2021. It'll be interesting to see how they make their announcements for the year, whether they do like another BlizzCon online thing like they did, or something else. But I think conventions have also learned that doing some things digitally can be a great way to continue to engage their communities.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think you saw that with the Ultimate online cosplay competition that I was a judge actually for the first time on, but doing kind of an online cosplay contest so that people didn't have to risk being anywhere and could still show off their hard work and still use those skills. I think that was a fantastic way to go about keeping people engaged.
Oh, so that was your first cosplay contest you've ever helped judge? It was an online one?
Yeah.
How was that? What was that like?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to be part of, the kind of the process of judging cosplay, because I know, okay, like I am not I'm not the one that's going out and making things, but with the design aspect of things, when I design a cosplay, I have to think about all of the things that judges tend to look for when they're looking at a costume. So like I have to think about connection points and materials and how will this move and can this move and what is the weight going to be like and what kind of finish are you going to deal with in terms of weathering these pieces and painting things. I have to think about all these things because when I design them, I have to build that in. I have to build in what a texture is supposed to be, or what a particular material might have to be, and I have to kind of work with the cosplayers individually and see what kind of material they're comfortable working with and what they're accustomed to. And so when I brought a very different mindset into the contest for sure, it was really interesting because the way it was done is that everybody submitted. And there were a number of more experienced judges who kind of pared down the list of cosplayers that made it into the finals. And so when we came into the process, when a majority of the judges came into the process, it was pared down to like 80 or so people that we had to look at in like 4 different categories. Whew. And I went through and I looked at all the material that they provided, all of their build books, and tried to really evaluate each one based on what I knew about the materials that they were working with, the difficulty of it, how much of their process that they showed, how well they documented their process, and you get to a point where you're really looking at each one, inch by inch, and trying to figure out, how much consideration did this person, take into to making, every little individual component. And it was fascinating for me. And then we had a kind of a judges meeting where the judges kind of finalized all of the decisions, and we had an opportunity to kind of, voice our opposition to where the judging ultimately landed with certain things, and
Sure.
And I definitely that was kind of eye-opening to me, because I respect And I respect the opinions of all of the judges that were involved. They're really talented people. Some of them have been doing this for literally decades. And but I was willing to step up and say, you know what, I disagree, and here's why. And I noticed that the arguments that I was making for or against certain people winning or losing, or winning or not, were based on more kind of an artistic vision of things, not necessarily just, this was a more complicated process or something. It was more like, well, sure, but it feels more like a gimmick to me, where it's like, that's the one thing that this team did, and the rest of it, like, it kind of cut out. It was kind of a weird end route around all of the other challenges that maybe some other cosplayers had to deal with. So I was looking at things very, very differently. I mean, I have a fine arts background, and in college they teach you how to critique pieces of artwork, and they tell you what to look for and how to scrutinize things, and and I definitely noticed that the way that I approached judging a contest like that was dramatically different than a lot of the other judges. And what's funny is that I had discussions with Hoku Props after the judging, all the judges had kind of come to a consensus. And he was like, yeah, so, what do you think? How did this go and everything? I said, well, I felt a little outnumbered in a couple of instances where there was not a single costume that got submitted that I didn't like. All of them were fantastic, which is why at the end of the day, I was totally comfortable deferring to other judges, their judgment on what they thought should win certain things. Right. But it's like, if it were all up to me, I think things would have looked a little differently, because while I found many of the same things that the other judges found impressive, there were some things that some of the judges found impressive that I wasn't as impressed with. And it was definitely coming from the perspective of the fact that they are craftsmen, they're crafters. They are going to naturally be more enthralled by crafting techniques, and whereas I'm going to be more impressed with something that is aesthetically more challenging to pull off.
Yeah, like you said, because it sounded like you were. Could you mention how they taught you in fine art school how to critique, like for art pieces? And I feel that's the mindset that you had in like just judging these cosplays off, utilizing like your fine arts knowledge. Whereas, like you mentioned yourself again, like you're not really a physical creator, like getting down to the nitty gritty of like working with foam or whatever materials, but everyone else is.
Right. And you know what it felt like? What it felt like was that we were all of the judges were looking at the same criteria. We were all looking at the same things. So it's not like I was looking at things different, like completely different things than they were in terms of what needed to be looked at and what needed to be scrutinized. It's that the value that I placed in certain things, or the value that they placed in certain things, were dramatically different. So while I may see something as being far more important, a lot of the judges, being crafters, were probably like, yeah, that's not as big of a deal to me. And vice versa. Like, there were things that they were really super impressed by and were like the things that they were hanging their decisions on, that I was kind of like, you know what, that doesn't mean as much to me. Right. And I think that's totally fine. I think that is a healthy competition. That is a healthy judging, because every single one of those costumes deserve to be there. And it's like, it's just once we get to a point where we have to really dig in, and it was very difficult because there were really, really different costumes that were all really well executed. And so to like be at the point where, we were like basically arguing over like the nitty gritty little details, I think that's a great place to be. But yeah, it was fascinating to me, because it really was like, well, this is what happens when you bring somebody who is more of a fine artist, somebody who's more of a painter or a designer into the process to see how they look at things, because it is dramatically different. And I feel like I was able to kind of sit down with Hoku Props afterwards, and we had a long discussion about how costume contests in general are structured, and what might be a more fair alternative moving forward, to give everybody the best chance to kind of represent their work in the best way possible. Because I think the process is still, everybody has to kind of figure out with every contest, with every competition, what is the right balance of criteria? Like, what are we going to require our contestants to provide? What are we going to require them to do? How strict are we going to be on certain provisions? Like, are we going to be more lenient? Are we going to be more strict and say, well, no, this automatically disqualifies you, etc. So we had a long discussion about, like, how do you go about judging a contest where you have these dramatically different approaches and you have judges from very, very different backgrounds. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very, very interesting moving forward. Ultimate Online Cosplay Competition, they are really expanding, and they're going to be doing more things that are really exciting. I mean, there's Hoku Props and Christopher Talk of Talk Customs. They do a podcast every weekend where they have somebody on, and they talk about. I was on that a couple months ago, and they talk about all kinds of stuff related to cosplay and judging and everything like that. But one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is how do you expand outward from just doing a contest? Like, how do you expand this to be something that is more helpful on almost like a daily basis for cosplayers that are out there struggling to learn new techniques or have to find resources for how to build things. And I think there's an opportunity that they're seeking to kind of take into consideration and take advantage of, that really creates something that's kind of unique in the cosplay community in building this wealth of resources. And I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't know how much of it I'm allowed to talk to you about, just because it's not my thing. And I'm privy to certain information that they were kind of giving us all. But I think it's going to be an exciting way to bring new questions and new mindsets into the world of cosplay in the next few years. So it's something to keep an eye on if you guys have an opportunity to check out that kind of stuff and kind of follow what they're working on. I think it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. Like anything to help like move along and evolve the cosplay community as a whole, with like providing resources and like workshops or tips and tricks. That's always needed to keep the community like thriving and healthy and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, there's always opportunities to expand. And what's funny is I was listening to a stream recently where Hoku was on with Sammy, his fiance Sammy, and she was talking about how early on in the cosplay world, people were really guarded about the information and the techniques that they had. It was like people that had their trade secrets. They didn't want to they didn't want to like share that information with anybody. So like it was really, really hard at the beginning to learn new methods or new techniques because people were like hoarding them, essentially, basically like not sharing their knowledge. And it's great that we're in a place now where people don't do that, where people are more comfortable just kind of sharing their knowledge freely. And I'm really excited that that's where we're at with things, and that's what we're, as a community, we've kind of just said, no, this is, we want everyone here to grow and to get better. And the best way to do that is to share knowledge, is to kind of say, yeah, this is how I did this. This is the material I used. Here's a tutorial on how to do it.
Right.
And I think designing in the art world is the same way. I've learned so much in recent years just by reaching out to artists who were doing things that I was like, man, that's mind blowing. I don't know how they're doing that. And I would just toss them a message, and they would be like, oh yeah, here, this is how this is done. Here's here's a link to the brushes I use, like stuff that, like a decade ago, people were being more guarded about. And I don't know if that's a generational shift or if it's something that's just the attitude of the community in general has just gotten better. But I think that this idea that, we're all in this together, and if it's something that we're all passionate about, we should be willing to share our knowledge and make us, kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of deal. So I'm really happy with where the cosplay community has gotten to over the past decade and where it's going. And, while I may not continue to take on costume commissions in the same way that I have over the past few years, I'm always going to be involved in some way in cosplay and cosplay design. It's just going to, it'll take different forms over time that are more suited to the cosplay community and the resources available, and kind of trying to make things more accessible to people. So it's going to be an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I'm just trying to rack my brain on the fly. So you've been, throughout this past year, have you been streaming like a little bit more often than usual, or?
Well, I was very early on, and it was exciting, but it got to a point where there were definitely times when I burnt out streaming. It was, I got some assignments earlier last year from Blizzard, working on a couple of stuff, a couple of assignments for Heroes of the Storm. And during those periods of time, I wasn't allowed to stream. And so, but it was projects that were really kind of keeping me afloat. So I had to kind of just keep working on them. And, so I wasn't able to do any sort of streaming. I had to prioritize doing that kind of work. And during that period of time, I stopped streaming. I got back to a position where I was able to stream a little bit later in the summer. And then I burnt myself out, mostly because I have a lot of commissions that I'm trying to get caught up on. Stuff that I basically lined up right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and it's been just kind of madness trying to get caught up.
Yeah.
Because, once that hits, suddenly now so much of my day gets dedicated to doing things that are other than working on commissions or working on stuff, getting commissions squared away. It's literally like, well, what do I need to do to survive? What do I need to do to make money to, keep us? And so commissions, they're still there, but they had to kind of be pushed down the priority list. And, for the most part, everybody on my commission list that had commissioned me was very, very, very understanding and patient of that. I'm, forever grateful. There were a couple people who were not as understanding. And that was some stress that I wish I didn't have to go through. But, people got to do what they feel is best for them and their career, and that's fine. But I got back into streaming again over the winter and earlier on this year, and it's been pretty consistent. I've been having a lot more fun. I decided that I don't want to work on cosplay commissions while I am on stream. And I want to work on other kind of more community-centric projects while I...
Sure.
So whether it's a design that the community has helped me come up with, or it is something that is for my Twitch community, or it is something that is like a Twitch overlay or something fun that isn't, a commission, that is far more valuable to me on stream than working on a cosplay commission. Because when you're working on a cosplay commission and you're on stream, it's like having, if you've got 8 or 10 commissions out there in the wild that you have to get through,
right,
and you choose to work on one of them on stream, it's like having 8 or 10 bosses that'll sometimes kind of lurk around your desk and come in and like peek over your shoulder at what you're doing. And it's like, if you're actually doing, the commission for the person that comes to peek in, then it's like, well, now there's this pressure that they may not like what I'm doing, or that I'm not working fast enough, or
it's like you're almost bringing in your real,
right.
It is. You're bringing your real life job into streaming, which is a little bit more stressful or not enjoyable. Like if you did your commissions on stream like every once in a while, sure, I get that. That's fine.
Yeah.
You're doing every single stream. It can make it a lot more not enjoyable, not fun. That's why I think when you mentioned like doing stuff for your like stream community, like I don't know if you like painting your walls on stream or
I was this week. I was painting my room, and so I just after a while it starts, because if you end up it's even worse when you're working on something, right, and somebody else you have a commission open for comes on stream and they see that you're not working on theirs, then they get upset about that. So it's like,
oh god.
So there's like if there's like 8 people in line, they don't know which order in line that they are. So so if I'm trying to rotate through a bunch of different projects to get a little bit of progress to everybody, it's just kind of a completely inopportune thing to be doing, because everybody gets upset no matter what you do. So I made the decision, look, I'm not doing this on stream anymore. I am going to focus on doing things that are more focused on, or more, centric to the streaming experience in general for the people that are here. I don't want to have to deal with this, like, feeling like I have 10 bosses looking over my shoulder. And even for the ones that were really understanding and everything, I appreciate the heck out of them. But it's like, it's not fair to them either, for me to be doing that, where they don't know exactly when I'm going to be working on their stuff, and they might come on and be like, well, what why on mine? Even if they're very understanding and they're patient, which most of them are. It's just easier to just do that stuff when I can focus on it in its entirety, and I'm not trying to keep track of what's going on in chat, and I'm not trying to
entertain them and have
right
on your brain. Yeah, exactly.
It's more fair to my stream family, because they get to be more engaged in something that doesn't have some sort of like personal bent to a particular cosplayer or something, so they can get more excited about what I'm doing, because ultimately it's something almost specifically tailored to them. I can be more engaging with them, and because I don't feel like I'm necessarily like on the clock, so to speak. And then it's more fair to the people that I have commissions to, because I can, when I'm focusing on what I'm doing for them, it's really focused on them. It's focused on what, their commission needs. So, it's a bit of a trial and error thing to kind of figure out how to incorporate that, into streaming. Like, how do you handle, doing commissions? I think that some streamers have an easy time doing commissions on stream. I just, I kind of got to the point where I'm like, it's not for me. I can't do it. It's not fair to really anybody involved. And it was burning me out. So, I had to stop streaming for a while and kind of just really think things out. And when I came back, I was like, look, here's what the case is. This is what we're doing. And, this is how I'll be able to focus on things. And, most people were super understanding of it. So I was really, really thankful for that. So, moving forward, that's pretty much how my streams are going to run. And I'm excited about it. It's actually been a lot easier to get back on and start streaming. It's been less stressful. It's felt like there's less pressure. That's how it should feel. Like, you shouldn't feel like streaming.
100%.
Yeah, it shouldn't feel like streaming is like a burden, or it's stressful. It should be something you want to do and you want to interact with people, and so it's getting to a point where it's feeling like it did a few years ago, where there was no pressure and people enjoyed themselves and they were engaging in chat, and I was able to engage in chat, and it's just a better way of doing things for sure.
Right. No, because I bring up the whole like how has content creation been for you, because I feel like a lot of cosplayers that essentially do this as their full-time job, like they've sort of felt that, I don't know when or at various different points of the pandemic, because I feel like at the start when everyone was told to like mostly stay inside, they would just like most of the females and males that did this with their, either when they had a Patreon or OnlyFans, or they dropped Patreon and now specifically are focused on OnlyFans. They would be like, "Oh hell yeah! Like I already stay inside most of the day. I'll get a lot of content done. Like I shoot my own stuff and blah blah blah." But then I would just see on Sunday they would just post about it either on their OnlyFans or, on their social media handles about feeling super unmotivated or down, like as the pandemic was starting to continue on, when it didn't seem like there was an end in sight. So I feel like
I think that there was definitely a shift in mentality. I think everybody, at least initially, when they're like, "Oh well, this will be a weird, short period of our lives where things are just a little bit wonky, and I'll just stay inside and I'll play some video games or whatever, and it'll be fine." And I think it's once people started to realize that this was not going to be wrapping up anytime soon, and that like this was a very serious problem, and it was causing a lot of other avalanching issues. That definitely took a kind of a toll on people mentally. I mean, myself included. All of 2020 is just going to go down in history as being one of just the worst years ever, I think, just in general. But yeah, I mean, for a lot of us, it was like we were just watching as essentially the world burned outside, and some of us celebrated it. And it was like, can we not, please? Can we just not be this way? So, I think everybody, went through a lot. And I think that we're going to be processing the trauma of everything that we went through, whether we lost somebody or not. I mean, I lost several very, very good friends this year, and it continues to be extraordinarily difficult to deal with that and to kind of cope with the reality of that. But at the same time, it kind of makes me more appreciative of the friends that I have that are here, and the ones that maybe I didn't always message or say hi to when I had the opportunity, because I'm like, oh, I'll see you next time or whatever. It definitely has kind of given me a different perspective on the time you spend with people and making the most of that time.
Yeah. Am I one of those friends that you don't message anymore? Oh no!
It was always like I was hesitant to commit to go meet up with friends or whatever, because I'm like, well, I got stuff I got to do. I can't really, spend the time to do that. But now I'm like, yes, let's just do that. If it's just, it's a few hours, I can make up for it elsewhere. I don't have to be constantly working. Like I want to be able to see my friends. So it's been a little easier to plan to go do stuff, because you're sitting here going, I don't want to look back on it and go, man, I wish I had taken that opportunity to spend that day with them. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'd want to visit my friends if possible, because I've got a lot of people that just live all over the country, or I may just have to suck it up and wait for the next con when that happens again. And part of me wants to shoot for KatsuCon, because I don't, due to family reasons, I don't know when I'll be able to go back to New York Comic Con again. Because that's just a whole mess in itself. But
oh yeah, yep.
Even still, like I don't even, because they're one of the cons that's opening back up in limited quantities. I don't know what that means. Like it's limited amount of badges being sold.
Yeah.
I know that's being opened up. I've been seeing a lot of people saying that they've got their rooms and tickets booked for Hallmat out in December. So yeah, that's coming up.
I mean, I think all that's a good thing. I think that people,
yeah,
you know, what I've been telling everybody is that we have to. It's one thing to say, "Oh well, things are going back to normal." I don't think we should think about it in that way. I don't think, because the thing is like what is normal? Because when you really look at kind of how everything was structured and how it has been for years, I don't know what normal means. I don't know what that is. So for me, I've been less inclined to say things are going back to normal, or that I want things to go back to normal. And it's more so been like, I want things to go back to a sense of familiarity. I want to be able to go to the same places that I'm familiar with going to, you know, and see the people that I'm familiar with seeing. But the idea of going back to normal kind of ignores everything that's happened. And the fact that there's nothing normal about any of this. There's nothing normal about any of how, you know, people are being expected to cope with all of this stress. How, you know, many state, local, you know, authorities have failed, you know, their communities in how they've responded and how they've gone about trying to help people through all of this. And you know, if we try to normalize it and we try to go back to like, oh well, I can go back out to the bar now, so I'm going to just forget that any of this happened, then, you know, like you miss the opportunity to learn a very, very, very crucially important lesson or two. And
oh yeah,
for me, like, you know, life is it's about those lessons. It's you can't go through life ignoring when big things happen and just like trying to get past them because they're too traumatic to think about. It's like, no, you have to think about them. You can be traumatized. You can go, you know what, this is really traumatic for me, so you have to kind of give me a second, you know, when we're talking about it or whatever. I get that. But the whole like, oh, I'm feeling triggered, I don't want to talk about this, that, you know, we need to get past that. I understand that things are traumatic, and I think that it's valid for people to say, you know, this is difficult to talk about, and it's we need to maybe shift the way that we approach talking about it. But I think we need to be able to talk about it. We need to be able to talk about where things went wrong, where people failed, and, you know, what could be done to prevent it in the future. And, you know, people wanting to ignore it because it's too traumatic. I understand you might have trauma, and you have to cope with it. And I'm all on board for people finding whatever mechanism they can to help cope with something, right?
Yeah.
But I've already started to see people that are adverse to even talking about what we all just went through, because they're like, oh, it's too triggering. It's like, no. Like, everybody went through that. Everybody had to go through it. You don't get to sit there and claim, oh, well, it's too triggering for me personally. It's like, no, everybody lost somebody. We need to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And the way we do that is by confronting it, is by confronting what happened, what went wrong, and what we can do next time, if there is a next time, or what we can do to prevent a next time. You know, retreating into a hole and not wanting to deal with it. You know, it's one thing if you're like, you're seeing somebody, you're going to therapy. I think that's healthy. I think that's, you know, if you're having a tough time, you know, being able to talk about it, that's what you should be doing. You should be talking, you know, to people who are professionals. You should be getting help. But completely just wanting to just disengage from it, which is, I've seen a few people wanting to do that. That's dangerous. That doesn't help anybody. it puts us in a situation where we could very easily repeat the same thing, not too far, too far down the road. And I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in doing that again. I want to get to the bottom of what happened and where we can shore up, every community and to prevent that from happening again.
Right.
How do we improve, our education system so that people are not so averse to science that they think that it's a good idea to inject bleach into themselves, or like that they're so averse to science that they don't trust the idea of wearing a mask, or they think it's some sort of infringement on their freedoms. Like, where did we fail these people? How do we fix that? That's what we should be discussing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I just, yeah. I mean, I get to the point where now when I hear someone saying, I don't want to talk about it because it's too triggering, it's like, you know what? We all went through it. It's triggering for all of us, and it's going to happen again if we don't talk about it. So, like, in most cases, I'm trying to be a little bit more sensitive to when people don't want to talk about something traumatic, because I think, you do have to be cognizant of what, some people are going to be capable of talking about in a given moment. But I think that when it comes to something like this, where if we don't talk about it, there's a very real chance of us kind of allowing it to happen again, and more people to have to go through that trauma. I think it's our responsibility to engage with what happened and go, okay, what do we need to do next? How do we get away from this? So, like I said, conventions, yes, I think, I'm glad that they're coming back. I'm glad that people are being excited about, wanting to go back to conventions and see people in person again. They should be. But I think that we also need to, like when we see somebody wearing a mask out in public, even after everybody's been vaccinated, and, if you see someone feeling that they need to wear a mask, I don't think we should be judging them for that. I don't think we should be faulting for that at all.
Yeah.
I think that we should embrace that. I mean, personally, I liked the fact that I didn't get so much as a sniffle all year because I was keeping it away from everybody. I think that, being able to talk about public sanitation and how, tax dollars should be spent to help, people who are in more vulnerable circumstances. I think that that's something that, we should be discussing. And so I'm excited for things to be getting back to a sense of familiarity, as I was saying. But
right.
I think we need to be willing to have those tough, those difficult discussions. And I just hope that more people end up agreeing with me on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to use, I've committed myself to not using the phrase getting back to normal for the very reason that we never really were at a state of normal. And that's kind of the problem. That was, everybody thought it was normal. And it wasn't. There was nothing normal about how things were.
There were just so many issues of what normal was that caused this giant failure of the country's response to this whole pandemic. That you want to get back to something that's familiar, but then also to a new sort of normal so that this kind of shit never happens again.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we should be fighting to create a new normal, a new sense of holding people accountable for things, like whether it was, with government agencies that were not doing what they were supposed to do to help protect people, especially vulnerable people in inner cities, or if it's a racial justice issue, or, like there needs to be a new sense of normal that comes out of this, where we normalize things like accountability. We normalize things like kind of accepting objective fact or understanding the scientific process, so that when, what's been really frustrating to me is, I watch a lot of the news, And you'll hear news anchors that these are educated people. I don't know why they ask this question, where they'll have like a director of the CDC or something on, right? And they'll say, well, a few months ago, your organization was saying this, and now they're saying that. How can people, trust you? And it's like, you should know that the answer to that is simple. That's science. You get new information and you act on it. And you can't get hung up on the fact that, oh, well, we already said this a few months ago. It's like, no, you act on the information you have. And when you get new information, you change your stance. And even if that means
change your opinions. Yeah, don't focus on the past opinions that you made if they were wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good wrong if you found something that makes more sense.
Exactly. Most scientists will tell you that there's no difference in terms of the levels of excitement between when they're proven right and when they're proven wrong. Like a scientist will be a true scientist will be just as excited when something that they've put out there as a theory is proven wrong as they are when they're proven right, because it's data, it's information. They're closer to understanding something. And I think that this was a big problem this year, where people would be like, well, I don't trust the CDC because, 3 weeks ago they were saying the opposite. It's like, yeah, we didn't have this data and we didn't have the information. So like, I understand, but I mean, at the same time, the CDC wasn't necessarily giving people advice that was dangerous. They always acted out of kind of a sense of overly cautious. So when, initially they were like, yeah, it probably won't hurt to wash your groceries when you get them back home. And then, later on they were like, yeah, that's not really necessary. There were people who were angry about that, about them changing their mind about it. And it's like, we learned more information. So that helped guide the new guidance. Like, why is that such a foreign concept?
Sorry for not getting it right the first time.
I mean, you should be excited that they've learned new information and now they can change that guidance. Like, why are you angry about the fact that they told you to do it in the first place? It's like, no, they were saying, we don't know, but, out of an abundance of caution, until we do know, it's probably not a bad idea.
Right.
So I mean, it's frustrating to me when I see people in the community too. And when I say I've lost friends this pandemic, not all of them to COVID and not all of them died. I've literally lost friends just from me going, I can't associate with this person anymore. They are spreading dangerous misinformation. They are being, willfully ignorant of what's going on around them. They're being, incredibly dickish about certain things, if that's a word,
Oh yeah.
And these are people that I have had over my home. These are people that I've done projects with, and I've had to basically cut them out of my life because I'm like, I can't abide having somebody with that kind of a toxic attitude and a complete disregard for science, for objective reality in my life. I'm 2020 was a lot of me pruning the hedges, so to speak. And I think it was probably that way for a lot of people, actually. It didn't. I think that was the biggest thing, is that it revealed to a lot of people, what people around us that we surrounded ourselves with are actually like. Whether they're people that you can really depend on when shit hits the fan, or if they're the kind of people that you might enjoy having a beer with, but at the end of the day, you're not going to trust them to do the right thing in a crisis situation. You know what I mean? Like,
no, yeah.
So I mean, and I'm thankful for all of that. I'm thankful for that insight, whether it's one way or the other. Because if it's somebody who's toxic, who you kind of need to cut out of your life, it's better you do it sooner than later. So like, hey, great, don't have to spend years trying to figure this out. They've done it for me. And then at the same time, when that you have somebody that really kind of pulls through for you in a moment where you're in a tough spot, it's good to know who you can also depend on. And I think that a lot of us have kind of gone through a period this year where a lot of that's become very, a lot more clear than it maybe had been. So, you're going to have a little bit of a coalescing around certain ideals, even within the cosplay community, even within smaller, friend groups. I think we've been kind of shown where a lot of us stand on certain things, and I think that was an important thing to have happen. So it'll be interesting. Right. It'll be interesting getting back into the world and seeing that stuff play out.
Yeah, no, that stuff could not ring any truer to my own life this past year, where I really doubled down on the fact and realizing that, family doesn't have to be strictly by blood when your own blood sort of treats you like shit or doesn't really appreciate what you've been trying to do or really doesn't believe in you.
Oh yeah, you gotta, you can't. What is it? You can't choose who you're related to, but you can choose your family.
Yeah,
that's what I've always heard. Is you can't choose who you're related to, who you're blood related to, but you can choose who you see as family.
Yeah,
and I will say there are people that I am related to by blood, mostly like extended family, but that I'm like, no, I don't need to associate with those people ever again. I just don't. I don't wish them ill, but it's like I have no need to share anything about my life with these people. They are fundamentally different than I am, and they're going to remain that way.
Yeah,
and their attitude is toxic to people I care about, so I don't need to have them around. And then at the same time, there have been people who I'm not related to, who have been there for me in ways that you would expect a family member to be there for. And I think that's a profound thing that we need to, as a generation, as a community, as a group of people, need to embrace. We need to embrace the fact that, we've, in many, cases, found new family members through adversity here. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, fuck it, whatever. Because I doubt I don't know who in my family listens to the goddamn podcast. I don't give a shit if I put them out on blast. I really don't. But essentially, I was kicked out of the house that I was living in for years because I've been working my ass off in trying to find another job to get out of the warehouse that I was in previously. And it had gotten to a point where, my mom and I had been fighting a lot over this earlier this year, ever since more so like 2019, 2020, like after my dad passed away. And it got to a point where, she kind of forced me to go see this therapist with her and threatening having a house over my head if I didn't go to these sessions.
Yeah.
And essentially it all boiled down to, I was still like applying to jobs, as I'm sure you're aware. It's different. You apply online mostly, takes a couple of clicks, and then you can't do a goddamn thing about it. You just hope and wait and cross your fingers and whatever.
Yep.
Well, that's what I was doing. And 2020 was coming along. They had at the start gave me till the end of the year to move out. Okay, fine. Plenty of time. They wanted me to make an Excel spreadsheet of every job that I've applied to and update it with the status of every job. Is that going to get me a job? Okay, we in?
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It happened. I'll just, I can just, there's going to be a moment of silence, so I'll see it on the audio readout, so I can just boop, boop, cut it out.
Yeah, it's the best part about doing things recorded.
Right. Okay, so Excel spreadsheet. Is that going to get me a job? How's that going to help? I'm legitimately asking you this question, yes or no?
What if you made an Excel spreadsheet
and update it with every job that I've applied to, with the status of it? Is that going to help?
Not really. No, it's just going to take up your time, honestly.
Okay, good. I'm not the only one that felt that way. So I didn't do it. I didn't do this, and they came to another meeting with my mother, and the therapist. And they're like, "So why didn't you do it?" And I was just like, "It doesn't help. It's more time, and I just want you to fucking trust me." And they're like, "Okay, well, if you're not going to do what we tell you to do," this was in April.
Yeah.
If you're not going to do what we tell you to do, now you got 3 months.
Yikes.
To get out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't understand.
Somehow I did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's awesome that you were able to kind of get yourself out of there.
And then just a couple of months ago, I got a new job.
Well, there you go.
So everything just somehow worked out. But it's just if I ever bring that up, sometimes my mom will just go why do you have this giant chip on your shoulder? No, that traumatized me emotionally.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever going to get over that.
Right. When you need somebody there who is family, and you expect them to be able to, be there for you in a moment of crisis, and they're not, that's pretty frightening. I had, some similar experiences, but luckily I at this point I've kind of come to grips where with kind of where I sit with family members, in terms of how much weight I give their opinions, or you know what I mean? Because you can still care about somebody, but also not give anything that they have to say or any of their opinions any sort of weight. I've realized that at some point it's yeah, you know what? I don't care if my crazy uncle has this weird idea, because he's not a part of my life. And if he wants to have it, as long as he's having it over there and he's not bothering, my friends with it or me, and he's just quiet about it, whatever, man. It's funny because that's the same argument that they always tended to make against, gay marriage, was that they were well, as long as they do it in their own room, why should I care? It's yeah, that's still, it's great that you're okay with it, but that's kind of a shitty way to be okay with it. But but it's with this, it's nope, this is where we're at now, where it's you know what? If you want to be weird, bigoted, just do it over there and do it quietly, so that I don't have to deal with you. Right. If you want to be a bigot. If you want to be a bigot, do it over there and do it quietly, and don't open your mouth around me. And then we can at least, I'm not saying we're going to be, buddy, but at least I won't want to punch you in the mouth, every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So, we're in a very different world than we were, a year and a half ago when you and I last spoke. So, I think all of us are a little bit more, battle hardened in many ways. And at the same time, a lot of us are, more traumatized than we were. And it's going to be kind of sorting through those, the wreckage of all of that. That's going to be, it's going to take probably decades, to be honest. But,
yeah,
as long as we're there for each other, and we can, kind of, make sure that we all kind of know, we reassure each other, hey, you're not crazy. Everybody's dealing with this. You're not alone. What you're feeling is valid. All of that's really important. I think it's really important that we remain, there for each other. And this is exactly what I was talking about, where it's you can choose, you can't choose who you're related to, but you can choose, your family. And it's when people are there for you in that, when they're really there for you when you need them, and in the way that you need them. That's family, not, people who are going to try to put conditions on it, or are going to try to make you feel guilty about something afterwards, or that's not what a family member does. That's just not.
Yeah.
And I think that we will find our feet. We will find, kind of an equilibrium with each other at some point. But it's going to take some really difficult, really awkward conversations for us to get there. And my concern is that there's going to be enough people wanting to have those discussions, to make any progress.
Because then there's also extended family on my dad's side. Well, I'm speaking with you my own social opinions, mainly around our police system. That okay. Was it wrong of me to tweet out at some point that I hate all cops? Sure, that was a general statement. It's not that I hate all cops. I'm very untrustworthy of the system.
Yep.
But
good reason.
Apparently, because one of my cousins dates a cop, I can't have that opinion.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
they did not take kindly to that. So they haven't talked to me since, and it's just been awkward whenever I do see them, because I just remember I saw them at Thanksgiving virtually, and they didn't say a goddamn word to me. They didn't say hi to me or acknowledge I was there. So then I just finished the food and left.
Yep.
I'm not dealing with this shit. I'm just not. And do I miss sharing all the stuff that I've been able to accomplish in this past year? Yeah, I do miss it. I love to show my extended family my nerd ass apartment. But I mean, if they just want to be broken up about this, fine. Because it's starting to feel like it's on me to apologize for something that I didn't do.
Right.
And
you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't have to feel like you need to apologize over having, a completely valid opinion about something. It's just because it's unpopular with them because, that's the thing is my dad is a retired cop. And, when everything was going on last summer with the protests, he and I did not see eye to eye on it at all. But, at the end of the day, I had to think about it. It's how much should my dad's opinion on this really matter to me? It doesn't. I love him and he can just be wrong. And that's fine. I don't he doesn't have to inflict he doesn't have to inflict me or my friends with his ideas. He can just be wrong and be over there and be quiet. And I don't care. I can still love him. But, I know there's some people who don't have that option, who, are kind of forced to have to confront these these really ugly truths about some people that they really, have had to depend on, over time. And, I think we'll get to a point where we kind of start to shift the importance that we place on some people who may have had very, a great deal of importance to us, growing up or whatever. And we'll start to appreciate other people more that maybe we hadn't had that same level of appreciation for. So, we will normalize, or we will. Yeah. I mean, that's actually the right use of the word. We will normalize it over time, but we have to choose what we decide is normal. And that's going to be the challenge is what do we decide is normal after this point? And what do we not accept as being normal? What do we reject as normal? So I think we've got some work to do, but I think that as long as we can kind of find a way to help each other out when we need it, and really kind of keep an eye out for each other, I think we'll get there. We'll be in a better place 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But it's going to take some work. It's not going to just happen on its own. So
yeah. What's the main topic of the show again?
I don't know. You're just catching up. I don't know. We're just catching up. And
right. That's okay. Quick detour. E3 is happening this week.
Yes.
Have you been watching any other conferences?
I haven't. I don't normally follow E3 only because, I don't own a console. I haven't owned a console in years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I want one. I would love to have a console. But it's literally like I just don't have the money for one. I don't, like I play PC games. That's what I enjoy most. I've been getting into some mobile games. But it's usually like when a console comes out, the price tag is usually just so cost prohibitive to me. Like I don't have that kind of cash just sitting around, to just pick one up. So I always feel kind of like I'm out of the loop with console games. There's so many that I would love to play too, like Monster Hunter, and because like I love playing that on PSP when like way back in the day, the original Monster Hunter. I was really big into that. I was into Monster Hunter 2 way back in the day, but I can't. I'm not, I can't pick up a PS4 or PS5. Like I just don't. I don't have that cash. Like so much of my time is spent working on stuff on my computer, and my computer is my work machine. So like I can justify having playing games on the computer. But consoles a bit, because like I used to always have a console. Like I think it was the last console that I bought for myself though, and you'll probably make fun of me for this, was a PS2. PS2 was the last console that I owned, that I bought for myself, that I was like regularly engaged in the games that were coming out for it and stuff like that.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Yeah. So,
oh my God.
It's ancient. Yeah, it's ancient.
Yeah.
It's like, somebody once told me if you want to make video games, you have to kind of give up on being able to play them all the time. Which is also kind of counterintuitive, because you do, in many ways, you do need to play video games, because you need to kind of anchor yourself in like why you're doing this, why you're involved in trying to create games, but also kind of keeping up with what's new, what is exciting, what kind of things are out there. So I do try to keep up with it, and like I said, I do play games. I just play I play desktop. I play PC stuff because that's what I have access to, and that's what I am pretty much always going to have access to. So there's certain games that I'm excited about that are coming out for PC, but when it comes to console stuff, it's kind of like I'm not the person to ask.
You're not really missing out on much. It's like the exclusive to consoles only, like all the stuff that Sony gets, or
right.
Oh my God, you don't even have a Switch?
No, I do not. that little sigh was hilarious. It's like a gasp, but also like a sigh, like, oh my God, what are we going to do with you?
I'm so sorry.
But that
was one thing I treated myself to last Christmas as part of the Extreme investment. I got another Switch because I had. So the story is, we got the OG Switch, my brother and I. It was mostly his because it was his money, and then he moved out, took the Switch with him, and I thought to myself, all the times I played the Switch, I would play it in handheld mode. A lot of the RPGs that came out, or like if I bought some of the old or like the classic Final Fantasy when they got put to Switch, I just played in handheld mode. So then I decided, well, maybe getting a light wouldn't be that bad. So then I got the Pokemon Sword and Shield edition. That was cool. Then I wanted to get into streaming. I had a PS4. I imagine it's possible, but also very difficult to stream from a Switch Lite because it can't dock. And then I just so happened to find on Amazon the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch.
Oh boy!
And I was like, "Oh, Merry Christmas to me!" So I bought it, and so then that's my new Switch. But now all these rumors about the Switch Pro are coming around. And I was like, "God damn it, no!" I just got this thing.
I think the thing that was most the only thing that I'm really disappointed. I mean, there's like two things that I'm really disappointed about that I can't really like participate in terms of like not having a console. One is Final Fantasy VII Remake, because I've been waiting. I was literally waiting decades for that goddamn game to come out.
We can get into that. Yeah.
And the fact that I wasn't able to play it because I don't have, a PC was devastating to me. And then also Monster Hunter. I think those are the two franchises that like I would absolutely want to buy a console for. Like they're like it's enough.
Right. Oh no. Internet outage again? Hang on. Double checking. This is a long episode. So
MMO RPGs.
Oh, there you go.
So like, and then just stuff like Valheim was really exciting for me, and it still is. So there's other things that kind of make up for it, but yeah, I would love to have a console. It's just not really in the cards right now,
Yeah. No, it. So I think from what I've been hearing, 7 Remake is exclusive for 6 months, or something like that. So it's going to come to PC soon. But what gets me is the fact that you had the remake, now you had integrated, which just came out. Okay, fine. But then they add in this Yuffie story DLC that's PS5 specific. I'm thinking to myself, okay, the game came out at the end of the PS4 life cycle. I knew eventually it would jump to PS5. I knew that was a given. The fact that they're doing this soon, like barely a year after the game came out, pisses me off because you can't find a PS5.
Right.
Because of the pandemic and the shortage.
Yep.
And like I'm thinking to myself, like, I'd be lucky if I got the thing by Christmas.
Yeah.
And so it pains me to see everyone that I'm seeing that managed to get their hands on one and are playing the game. Like, I'm watching a walkthrough on YouTube of one of my favorite YouTubers that I like, play through the game, because I'm like, am I risking spoilers? Yes. But do I want to wait till Christmas? No. Well, I just have to bite the bullet and just get spoiled.
Right. No, and I think that there's I think that's part of why I never bothered with consoles, because back early on, you wouldn't have a console come out every couple of years. It was like you'd be waiting literally just like half a decade more, or more for an upgrade. So like, how long was the PS2 on top? Like, was that the big thing? How long did we wait for the PS3? Years and years.
Yeah.
And I was okay with that, because then it was like, well, eventually I thought for a while I was going to get a PS3, because I'm like, yeah, well, it's been long enough. I could probably get that. But I just never got around to it because it was, I had other things going on. But now it's like PS4, PS5, they're already talking about the next one. It's like, can we stop? Like, why? Like, we're not even fully utilizing the capabilities of one before jumping to the next machine.
I just
and I think that's what is appealing to PCs about, to me about PCs, is because you can literally just swap parts out if you need to. As long as your motherboard's capable of it, you can swap pieces and parts out and upgrade and be able to handle things. So
it's the thing that got me, that worried me about this next generation, that we had PS4 and Xbox One, but then we had almost maybe getting close towards that generation's lifespan. We then had the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, and I'm like, wait, what? What is this? Is this an upgrade? What did it upgrade? Very little upgrade. Just visual fidelity. Like, I don't want that to happen with this next gen. Otherwise, it's going to be a shit show. Money-wise.
Right. Exactly. So I like consoles. sure, like, I know some people are really, really, really into consoles, and that's great. I'm just not one of them. I'm not. I'm not. I can take it or leave it. Like for me, it's all about PC gaming. I don't, fault people who are into consoles. And that's great. I think that is something that they enjoy. Then that's what they should be doing. That's what they should be investing their money in and everything like that. Just like I don't fault people who are into mobile games. Like if people are engaging in gaming because they're getting into mobile gaming, great. I don't care. Like I'm not going to be some sort of weird, like look down at my nose snob just because somebody chooses to game on their phone or on a tablet instead. Like,
right.
Who am I? Like if as long as they're enjoying it and having fun, that's the point. Like that's what they're supposed to be doing. So yeah, I mean, like, I think that we need to get to a place, honestly, where we just, we stop faulting people for enjoying gaming the way that they enjoy gaming. And,
sure.
and, I've been really, really enjoying some mobile games during the pandemic because sometimes, that little moment where I'm soaking in a tub or if I'm, having lunch or whatever, and I'm just on my phone, that might be the only opportunity that I get that day to do any sort of gaming. So I'll play, like, there's a really awesome Gundam game that I'm into. There's Raid Shadow Legends is a really cool game. I love the design in that game. Like the design is great. I was playing Genshin Impact for a while, which was really outside of my normal, what I normally gravitate towards, but it's a lot of fun. It was really impressive, that they were able to get that much information into a mobile game. I'm excited for Diablo Immortal. I know a lot of people aren't, but I am one of the ones that is, especially since I've watched some friends playing it on stream lately, and it looks freaking amazing. So, I really feel like there's a lot of potential in mobile games as our phones get more powerful and as, things become more casual. So, I think we need to kind of shed this whole like weird, competitive stripe that some people end up having in terms of like, oh, you play mobile games? Well, get away from me because I don't want to talk to you. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, gaming is gaming. Like, we should.
I wouldn't say it's more a competitive thing, more of like a stigma. Like, oh, you play mobile games? What are you, a girl?
Yeah.
What are you, a
right.
little kid?
Yeah, it's like nonsense. It's like I'm not sitting here playing Candy Crush, even though Candy Crush can be fun too. Like, I'm playing something that's kind of intense. Like, there's nothing wrong with that kind of stuff. Like, I've never understood the weird kind of like gatekeepy mentality that the gaming community can have on occasion. And I mean, I've pushed back against it any time that I see it, I try to push back on it because it's like, who are you to dictate to other people, about how they should be enjoying gaming or what kind of experience that they should be trying to have while gaming. Like, gaming it's different things to different people. And if all they want is a short little kind of easy kind of cathartic thing that they can, use, while they're on an elevator or something on the way to their job, then great. If that's how they experience it, great. If it's something where they're going to dump tons of time into it, once a week, on their day off, and they're going to spend their whole day doing that, that's great too. If it's something that they're going to go hardcore with and they're going to like play nonstop and they're going to try to make a living as a competitive gamer, like they want to get into competitive Overwatch or something like that, great. That's great too. Like, there's room for every kind of gamer out there. So I don't understand why people try like pushing their weird stigmas out there, like, oh, okay, mobile gaming is just for girls. It's like, okay, well, that most of the people who play video games today are girls. Like, yeah. do I need to point that out? Like, statistically, like, okay, I'll point it out. A larger portion of the gaming world is female now than it was.
Yep. I've read that. I've heard about that. Yep.
So, yeah, and it's been that way for a few years. So I don't know what this whole like, God, the weird stigma is. I think we're doing better at starting to weed out some of the toxic masculinity that we see in places like the gaming community. I think we still have a long way to go. But I'll tell you, I'm more enthused about the progress that I'm seeing in gaming culture than I ever was about comics culture. Because comics culture, man, like there's some areas of that are just unsalvageable, I think.
Yeah, I believe.
Like if you ever see like like Marvel forums or like you'll go on like Reddit or see like a Marvel subreddit or something, and oh my god, the toxicity is just it's like, man, how does this person, like sometimes I have to read a comment and be like, how does this person function on a day-to-day basis without like just having a freaking aneurysm over nothing? Like Captain Marvel's not supposed to be like this, and they're going to be like that, and wow, that's why this happened. It's like, can you not? Like, can you just?
Why'd they make him black? Oh, woke culture! Oh, give me a goddamn break.
Yeah, it's like, get over it. Like, it's not about you. It never was. Like, let it go. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like, I'll tell you one thing. That's like, it's not that I didn't already kind of operate this way, but if I do end up going back to conventions where I'm doing tables or something like that, I'm definitely not putting up with any of that within earshot of me. Like, not that I didn't already kind of like speak up when I could about, what if I hear somebody saying something, but like, you'd be amazed at how often like I would see somebody that was excited about like you'd see like a little boy that was excited about a Wonder Woman print or something like that. And then he'd be there with his dad or his older brother or something, and they'd be like, "Oh, you don't want that. That's girl stuff." And it's like, bitch, what? Like, what did you just say?
Yeah,
like, I'm sorry. You're saying Wonder Woman is only for girls? Like, okay. I guess you've never like actually, read or gotten into it at all, because it's not like, there is definitely plenty of room. And like vice versa, there would literally be mothers that would like try to steer their daughters away from certain comics because they're like, well, that's for boys. That you don't want to look at that. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, can you stop trying to tell your kid what is normal that they should be appreciating, or what they can or can't like? Like, if they like it, let them like it.
Yeah.
If they're into it, let them be into it. You like that, you don't know what kind of effect, like what kind of positive impact that that particular story might have on them in some way. Like, it's all fantasy stuff. Like, let them enjoy fantasy stuff. Like, why do we? I cannot stand gatekeeping people, and that's comics, that's cosplay, that's gaming. It's all nerd culture is meant to be inclusive.
All nerd, yep.
It's meant to be inclusive. Like we've always been the ones that were kind of on the outside. Like, we were always kind of the outsiders anyway, the exiles, so to speak. That's what nerd culture was, And then when it became mainstream, now there's these people trying to like dictate what who can or can't be into nerd culture, and it's like, are you serious? Like, you're just doing the exact thing that people did to you to make you feel like an outsider.
Like an outsider. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, stop. Would you just stop that? Like, I've actually yelled at people at a convention before. Like, not yelled, but like called them out on it on the convention floor before.
Right.
And they weren't. But you know what? I'm not here for their happiness. I'm there for their, the kid that they're trying to indoctrinate with the idea that they can't like, a particular comic or a particular, art or something because it's specific to a particular gender. It's like, would you stop? Just stop with your weird ideas. Like I was a little bit more eloquent than that, but that was essentially the gist of what I was getting at when I was, having discussion with them. Is like, you need to stop. You need to stop putting these weird ideas into your kid's head. Like, comics,
exactly.
Gaming, it's for everybody. You don't get to decide what they find interesting.
Yeah.
So just stop trying.
For
they
sure.
were not too happy with it. But I don't care. I'm not going to sit there and watch that happen. I've seen too many kids, end up with like weird hang-ups and stuff about things because they were indoctrinated with the idea of this is how this is supposed to be, or you're only supposed to like this if you're like this, or I don't know. It's a weird nerve for me, I think.
Yeah. So just slight, well, I mean not slight, like back into E3 territory. So you got the Nintendo Direct, which is pretty much the only other Direct that I'm looking forward to on Tuesday. I am 100% certain we're getting the next Smash character reveal for their DLC, and I will continue to be on this ride or die. Give me my store or you goddamn Sakurai, put them in. I don't care if it's the fourth Square Enix character. Put them in the game. I will die on that hill. I will die on that hill. I don't care.
Yeah. No, I haven't played Smash in a long time, so I don't really have a.
You don't have a horse in this race.
No, I don't. I really don't. I'm like, okay, whatever ends up being in there, that's cool.
It was added Sephiroth. Oh my god.
Yeah, no, that was really neat. I always like the reveals. I don't play.
They're works of art. Like they put effort in the trailer. It's so hilarious.
They really do. And that's the thing. It's like I will enjoy trailers for things that I know I'll never play. Just because that's kind of how I am. I love the artistry of it. I love the kind of the storytelling of it. I love that it gets people excited. So that's just So even if it's like I don't play these things, like I don't play that game, I can still get excited about it. And but I'll tell you, if it was something. Isn't engaged in the community that they for the game that they work on, and it's like, how are you able to do that? Like you need to care about how the things that you're creating are impacting the people who support you, the people who support what you're doing. And so it's mind blowing to me when I meet somebody who's like, a developer on a game or something, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't really play. What? Huh? How? Like why?
That's odd.
Yeah, it to me it's even more frustrating when it's like they have a job where I would love having it, where I'm like, I would love that job. I would take it very seriously and care very much about what people enjoy and what people what their hopes are. I mean, I know you can't, I know you can't let the fandom necessarily dictate proper game development choices, right? But you can, it is important to kind of have your thumb on the pulse of like what that community is thinking, what they care about, what matters to them, so that when you're developing something, you are developing something that isn't just going to fall on deaf ears. It's going to be meaningful to somebody.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to push closer and closer to a full-time position doing game development, because that's my passion. That's what I want to do.
Sure.
And it's difficult. It really, especially the past year, it's been very difficult. Even the work that I've done, for Blizzard has been curtailed quite a bit as they are trying to figure out what they want to prioritize in terms of the games that they have. So I technically have a contract with them until the end of the year, but I haven't gotten a single assignment since maybe October of last year. So I'm kind of like, like, what's going on, guys? What are we doing?
Right. Yeah.
And, it kind of makes me nervous because it's like, are they not contacting me because they don't want to use me, or are they not contacting me because they legitimately don't have anything in development?
Right.
That's like, both of those are scary. So, I'm just trying to kind of figure out where I fit into all that. But hopefully soon. Hopefully I'll find something. I'll hear about it.
I'm sure you will. Yeah. Oh man. What other?
I tend to rant about things for a while.
No, it's fine.
It kind of just lets us. It leads us down paths where we're like, well, what were we even talking about?
No, I'm trying to think of what else could we talk about, but then I'm just like, also just a heads up. I don't know if maybe you'll notice. I don't know if it's going to show up, but there were some moments where you would just talk, but then I get you cut out, and then I just get nervous being like, did the internet cut out? But then you suddenly come back in during your random rant train of thought.
Oh,
like,
boy.
Okay, thank God.
Oh, boy.
So there might be spots where there are drops of silence, but then you just come right back in as if you're still talking and never left. So if that happens, I apologize to you. I apologize to the listeners.
I mean,
about it.
It might be on my end. I know that the last, earlier when, it just kind of completely cut out, that was, my internet just stopped working. It just, randomly just was like, nope, we're done. So, hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Right.
But yeah, I can't control it.
Yeah. So.
But I mean, like I'm excited for some games. I'm excited for what's been happening with WoW Classic. I'm excited to get back into Burning Crusade Classic. I started a character. I didn't really get a chance to level them up very high.
So you've been investing more into WoW Classic than like the current WoW, or?
You know what? I kind of go back and forth, because for a long time I was playing WoW Classic and, more than I was retail game. And then Shadowlands came out, and I was really into Shadowlands for a while until it started to feel kind of grindy and repetitive again.
Sure. Yeah.
And I ended up with just real life responsibilities that had to take precedence. And then, with Burning Crusade Classic, I'm like, I really want to get back to it. And then I know that when the next patch for Shadowlands drops, I'm going to want to go and do that too. So it's mostly a matter of like, can I spare the time? But I got really into playing Valheim when that came out, and I still like, I get weirdly obsessed with that game while I'm playing it, because I'm sitting there basically almost with the mentality of like a game tester, where I'm like, I want to see how freaking bizarre I can get with some of these buildings that I'm making. Like,
yeah,
like I'm gonna go find a weird little like rock in the middle of the ocean and see if I could build an entire base off of it, just by extending things. So like weird stuff like that, where I'm like, I'm gonna build something at the top of this gigantic monolith rock here, or I'm gonna build a whole base that's just at the very top of the trees. Like, just weird stuff like that I get really excited about trying to do. But then, like we're waiting for new content in that game. And then there's also another game coming out pretty soon that I'm excited about, called New World. And it's by Amazon's game studio. And, so far it looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a weird kind of cross between, a bunch of other games that I enjoy. I'm not entirely sold on some aspects of it yet, but a lot of it sounds like a lot of it looks really cool when you go and you watch trailers and you watch gameplay video of people playing it. And so I'm excited for that. I think that there's a lot of really cool things happening right now in the gaming world, and there's going to be a lot of cool things that will continue to happen. I think we just need to, give developers plenty of time to actually make things the right way. I think that development companies need to invest more in their development teams. And if that means expanding them so that, team members don't feel like they're having to do the job of, 4 or 5 people, I think that's where you need to be.
Right.
And I think that's there's that crunch problem right now going on in the gaming industry where, developers end up burning themselves out because,
oh yeah, absolutely.
They keep laying people off or firing people or getting rid of entire departments, and then they basically expect other departments to pick up the slack.
Yeah, no, that's not good.
And then you end up with people that are in that development, they're in that development team that end up getting burned out because they're doing the work of 3 or 4 people. And it's like, if you need to make cuts, but when you start making cuts that make it harder for people to do their job, because that job, what that means is that the job that you cut was important and that it was vital and you shouldn't have cut it. Yeah. It's like, there are certain places where, you probably can trim some fat here and there, where it's like, do we say we employ like 1,000 game masters or something, and, most of them end up spending their day just kind of sitting around on social media because they're not needed. Well, that's a sign that your development team is making a game that has few bugs, but it also means that that's where you can trim some fat, but not on your development teams when your development teams feel already pretty strained. Right. So I don't know. I'm not, I'm not somebody at an upper level in a gaming company making these decisions. So there's probably plenty of things that, I'm missing or that I'm not privy to that might change my mind. Right. But at the same time, I know plenty of people in the gaming industry that have really had to suffer because people at upper levels of, some of these gaming companies make decisions that directly affect their lives in a very negative way. And they just keep doing it. And like the people who end up suffering are the ones that are trying to make these games the best they can, while the people at the top kind of just sit there and they rake in all the credit for having the most profitable year ever or whatever. And, meanwhile, their developers are stressed the hell out, or they're sleeping in their cars or, like any number of other things that are going wrong. And it's like, that shouldn't be happening in, an environment where, you're supposed to be fostering creativity and an environment where people can create things stress-free. Like, it's just not a good way. It's just not a good business model. And I don't know what it's going to take for, the people at the top that are making these decisions to see that. But the sooner they do, the better. I don't know if it's that something needs to fail catastrophically for them to get the point, or if there needs to be like a worker strike. I will say that I think the game developers need to have a union. They don't currently have a union, and they need to have a union because they are getting exploited left and right, and nobody's stopping it, and nobody's stepping in. And it's like at a certain point, it's like they should be unionizing. And I know that there's a lot of them that are trying, but it's a really kind of complex process. Right. But I mean, I've got so many friends in that industry that I'm like really hoping that they're able to kind of pull it off because I want to see them less stressed.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So 2 things. One. Well, no. Because all the talk about crunch, that makes me think about like the somewhat failure that Cyberpunk 2077 had when it launched. Because I mean, it was notorious. We know that the CD Projekt Red was crunching their developers super hardcore, and like I don't even know if that's back up on the PlayStation Store.
Yeah.
And it's almost been a year since the game came out, or it's getting close.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah. I think part of the problem though too is with the culture of consumers. Us as gamers, we've come to the point where we demand that games be released quickly and that they be perfect. And it's like, that's not always possible. Like, quality takes time.
You rarely get both.
Right. It's like it's almost impossible to get both, because if something is done quickly, it's not going to be perfect. And if something is perfect, it's not going to be done quickly. Like, it takes time to do things the right way. And I think that, the gaming industry has backed itself into a corner, I think, to a degree where they've kind of set the standard for people where they should be expecting, constant releases to be going out the door, but they don't give the developers the time to polish them and make them what they should be. And I think every major gaming company has seen that happen and had to suffer with it over the past few years, with one release or another. And what's unfair is that the developers take the flack for that. They're the ones getting the flack for it. Oh, why isn't this better? Like, why does this suck? It's like, it's not because the developers suck. It's because the developers were pushed into a corner where they had to make sacrifices of things. They had to sacrifice, the quality that they were probably aiming for because of time and money. And that decision was not made by a developer. That was a decision made by somebody at the corporate office who doesn't understand the process of creating a video game. They don't really care about video games. They don't care about the culture. They don't care about, they just want, that nice big fat bottom line. And that's all it is. Those people should not be making decisions for the industry in general. They should not be, like, the people at the corporate offices should not be making calls that directly affect development, period. There's no argument that anybody can make that's going to convince me otherwise.
Right.
Sure, I know you have to be able to spend responsibly. I know that you can't just be spending money left and right. But I think that the corporate office shouldn't be there to tell the developers what they can or can't be doing with the game that they're making, based on budget. I think that that's something that's like the people who are laying the groundwork for the game very early on, kind of trying to figure out what the game is going to be, how far ranging it's going to be. That's where that decision gets made, is how can we make the best game possible within the budget that we have. And then you basically don't run into a problem of having to cut things because you didn't try to, expand it to something that you knew you weren't going to have a budget for in the first place. You just make smart decisions early, from the very get-go. And that's how it should be, is that you should be making smarter decisions from the outset of the game. So you don't ever run into a position where you have to cut out something that is kind of vital to what making that game what it should be. Instead, you develop from a standpoint of knowing what your budget is, knowing what kind of resources you're going to have, and then making a game that fits that, where you can actually give the game the attention that it deserves in the places that it needs it, and not be stressed that you're going over budget. I'm not entirely sure what the fix for that is, because I think that kind of decision making happens at multiple levels, and I think everybody has to kind of be on the same page for it to really work out. But one thing is for sure is that it shouldn't be on the developers. It shouldn't be on the people that are, really pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into a game to make it the best they can, and then are constantly getting word from on high, hey, we have to cut this entire thing that we've been working weeks on because it's just going to cost too much to make it work. It's like, well, then who decided to have us try to do this in the first place? Like, now that we've told fans that this is going to be a thing and they're going to be expecting it, now it's going to come back on the developers when it's not done. It's like, either the people at the corporate office have to be more transparent about the fact that they're making decisions like that, and that they need to be the ones taking the blame, when something like that happens, so that the fans aren't poking at the developers. Basically, the developers need to be willing to say, hey, this is what we were working on. This is what we wanted to have released. This was a decision that came down. We didn't have any way of challenging it, just so you know. So if you're mad about this, you need to voice that opinion, to the corporate office. You need to, make yourself your voice heard as to why you're upset.
Yeah.
Because I think part of the problem is that the developers are just kind of expected to take the flack. Like they're expected to be the ones that are going to take the brunt of the criticism. And so like you have people at the corporate level making these decisions where they know full well that it's going to be very, very hard on the development team because they've already put in so much time and they've already put so much passion into it. And it's like, the fans are waiting for something. And then now suddenly, because of kind of a corporate bean counter, they can't have it. And it's like, nope, you know what? Whoever made that call needs to be the one out front saying, I made this call, here's why. Now you don't get to have this, and here's why. And I think that if corporate offices actually had to do that, and then actually had to deal with the fallout themselves, then maybe they would be a little bit more cautious when they had to make those decisions. They'd be a little bit more hesitant to be like, yeah, we're just going to cut this for money, because we don't want to spend this much money on this game.
Right.
It's like, good games cost money. Good games require investment, and if you do it right, you're going to hook people. And you're going to build brand loyalty, which is going to make you more money than whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to make you more money than what you might have saved making this one little decision that ends up being incredibly unpopular.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's because when, as soon as the gaming industry started chasing short-term profits above, long-term brand loyalty and satisfaction, is when we really started down this road and started having this problem. And I really don't know how that gets fixed, but it's something that needs to get fixed.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I was just curious about, and we covered a wide variety of topics, so this might be the possible one thing to end on. I was just curious because you got retail, current WoW, and you got WoW Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Did Blizzard have an intended roadmap or end game for WoW Classic, or is this just going to be weird because my brain's thinking, is WoW Classic going to keep going on? So that the fact that is WoW. So is WoW
where
Classic
does it end?
So long that because WoW retail, are we basically going to see WoW Classic Shadowland at some point in 60 years?
Here's the thing. I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. I think that there is a tremendous amount of nostalgia associated with the first 3 expansions of World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah,
so I love Burning favorite up to Wrath, and it was only after Wrath that the game really started to decline in terms of the amount of players that were actively engaged. And while some people may really, really have nostalgia and good memories for things things that happened in Cataclysm or things that happened in Mists of Pandaria, I think that it's those first 3 expansions. I don't think they're going to go any further than Wrath. I would be very, very surprised if they, because that's where
part of me is thinking that too. Yeah.
Because pretty much beyond that is there, the game never got back to the same level of player base as it had during those first 3. So through Cataclysm, through Mists of Pandaria, because personally, I would love to see a WoW Legion Classic. I think that would be great, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. Because Legion, to me, was probably the best put together expansion. It's not the one that I have the most nostalgia for, but it was the best kind of objectively put together expansion that they've released.
Sure.
In terms of the amount of content, the quality of the content, the design, the music, everything was great. I don't think they're ever going to go back there, though. So I don't know how sustainable the whole, kind of classic era is going to be. I guess we'll get a picture of it as Burning Crusade Classic continues, just to see how well do the original Classic servers hold up once, Burning Crusade is around? Like, are there still going to be enough people on, normal vanilla classic servers to kind of keep it running?
Right.
Or is it going to be something where people are just going to kind of get bored with it and they don't want to do it anymore? You just have to, like, I don't know if that's going to, because like the whole thing is like, how, realistically, if everybody's doing Burning Crusade Classic, but you don't want to, you want to stay in vanilla, and you want to keep raiding and get the best gear, and you want to create other tunes and everything, like, are you going to have enough people to do 40-man raids with that are going to be, on your server, or that you're going to be able to play with? I suspect that there might be a few guilds that'll do that, that'll continue it going, but I really feel like there's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to just keep going with the classic. But at a certain point, yeah, that ends. Like, where does it end? Where do you draw the line? Because like nobody wants Warlords of Draenor Classic. No one wanted Warlords of Draenor, period. We didn't want that originally. So why would anyone want a classic version of that? Like, I think that expansion had a lot of potential. There are certain things about it I really enjoy, but it was a misfire. And I think most people that worked on it would even tell you that there were things that it was kind of, it's perfect example of what happens when you try to rush something. I think the best thing that came out of Warlords of Draenor was Legion. Because if Warlords of Draenor hadn't been done in the way it was handled, I don't think that there would have been enough time to implement all of the really great systems that we ended up getting in Legion. So, I think that's a perfect way to explain it, to people, is that the same team that created Warlords of Draenor also created Legion. So it's not that like you had people that didn't know what they were doing, or that they weren't as good. You had the same people. It's just that they had more time. They had more time to refine. They had more time to really pour themselves into it. So, yeah, as far as Classic goes, I don't know. We'll have to see. I think it's going to end at Wrath. I think that's when they'll stop. I don't know a ton of people that are nostalgic about Cataclysm. I don't know a ton of people who are nostalgic about Mists of Pandaria. I don't know. They might do a thing where I could see them doing a thing where they, after Wrath, they just do a thing where you can set your own classic era, up to where it's like not all the where there's like specific servers then that are like, well, this server is going to be a Mists of Pandaria server, or this server is going to be a, for weird people who are into, Warlords of Draenor, or whatever. Like they might do something where they might make it so that they're, instead of trying to do a release of every individual expansion, they might just be like, hey, there are going to be servers, classic servers for all of the expansions. You just have to go and pick which one you want to level in, right? Sure. But the problem with that, though, is then you risk thinning your player base out too much. Because it's already thinning the things out, because like retail WoW has taken a hit from Classic, because people actually have preferred playing Classic to the retail version of the game recently. It's been kind of a huge success. But at what point does that stop? Like at what point do just get tired of things? And like what at what point does it start to kill your ability to continue the story? If everybody's going back to a prior version of the game instead of playing the retail version, what incentive is there for you to continue creating more content, new content? Right. So I think that's something that Blizzard's going to have to grapple with. It's something they're going to have to wrestle with, and I'm sure they already are. But I don't know. We'll have to see.
I got half curious and looked them both up, but it seems like it was a 2-year gap between the releases. So, WoW was in 2019, and Burning Crusade just came out.
Yep.
So,
well, and you also have to account for
that release schedule. Then we might hear something in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think that Blizzard right now is kind of going through a bit of a period where it's trying to find itself as a company, because it was kind of at its peak. It was kind of at its height, maybe around 2015, 2016, where they just had so much really great stuff coming out. Legion was released, and BlizzCon was just huge, and Overwatch was announced, and you had huge StarCraft tournaments, and Heroes of the Storm was doing well, and Hearthstone was doing all kinds of fun stuff, and Diablo 3, you had the Rise of the Necromancer thing happen, and so they just had so much going on. They had so much to be excited about. But basically, in the years since, it has kind of just tapered away as the money has been drying up and getting tighter. It's taking more time for them to be able to release new content. The content that they release is not necessarily what everybody's wanting to see. And I think they've lost a lot of talent. They've gained some, but Blizzard used to be that company that could retain talent like nobody else, because it was just a great company to work at. Everybody who worked there loved working there. It was just a great environment.
Oh, yeah.
Paid well. There were perks like out the wazoo. But the problem is that you've seen all of these other studios pop up recently after huge kind of public parting of ways have happened with, Mike Morhaime, and you had Chris Metzen leave, and you had there's other like major players in that company that have left over the past few years that didn't even make it into the public eye, because they're people who were kind of behind the scenes anyway. But major artists that were responsible for some really big things happening in game have gone. They've gone to other studios, and so you start to have to wonder, like, at what point, are they in a rebuilding phase where they're not in a phase where they're really in a position to start putting out a ton of new content, because they are trying to find kind of new footing.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many shifts that are happening. Like I said, I have a contract with them till the end of the year, and I haven't gotten a single assignment. And when I try to reach out to my my point person to be like, hey, what's up? When are you guys going to need me for something? He doesn't even know. Like that's how
oh boy,
that's how up in the air things are. Where like the guy that I'm supposed to for my contract basically can't tell me when the next thing they'll have for me, because he doesn't know, because he might not even have a lot to do. So it's like I think they're right now they're in a tough spot. I think there's a lot of pressure on Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision. He cut his salary, he had his salary cut in half, but now the board of investors over at Activision they don't think that's enough. Like they're still angry.
Oh, I read that, something about they still think he makes too much money.
Yeah. And to be honest, they're right. He does. For what he does at that company, he does. Exactly. Except for cut funding to projects that people care about, and make terrible decisions about what.
Oh my God!
Where these franchises should go. Yeah, like what does he do? And especially when there are people who at both Activision and at Blizzard that do so much more. For that company. It's like why are we paying this guy this much? I think that's a valid question for them to be asking. To be honest, the investors to be asking. It's like, why does he make this much money?
You cut the salary in half, and you still think he makes too much.
Well,
God, Jesus Christ!
But think about that. It like how much money?
That's wild. How much do they pay him?
Like, think of how much money he would have had to, like he was making. He was I can't remember the exact number, but it was some insane amount. And most of it was in like stock options and stuff like that. So that's why like cutting his salary wasn't even that big of a deal, because like most of his pay isn't in his salary. And I think that's why the investors were actually pissed, is because like they felt like nothing, like this didn't even do anything, because it was only for like a 1 calendar year, and like it doesn't even take effect other than like 2022 or something. Like, I don't know what it was, but the article lays it out well, why they're upset. And I get it, especially when you're laying off 800 employees at a time because you say you can't afford it. And these are people that are actually performing like a functional role at this company, in development. And you lay off 800 employees. You cut the Heroes of the Storm competitive league without letting anybody know that was going to happen. Which I guess there's actually like a possibility that they could be facing some sort of like legal ramifications, because there were people that had invested millions in professional Heroes of the Storm teams for their tournaments, and there were whole people that they're like whole like miniature industries that had popped up around streaming that, and supporting it and hosting events, and like it just trickles all the way down the ecosystem, so that when they just decided to like up and just get rid of the Heroes League without telling anybody, you had a lot of people who were left out in the cold, and a lot of people who had invested a lot of money and a lot of time that were just left holding the bag, and that did not go over well. So much so that I don't know if it was Japan or if it was North Korea, maybe, that they actually had a bill that would penalize any company that does something like that, like where they are liable for the damages in the event that something like that happens. And they literally call it the Heroes of the Storm bill. I was like, whoa, like that's not the kind of legacy you want to have, is a bill named after a game you made because it screwed people over. Like that is not exactly the kind of legacy you want to leave.
So I got curious and looked it up. So it says a recent investor filing revealed that Kotick had extended his employment agreement to March 31st, 2023, but with a pay cut. He was earning $1.75 million a year. Now he's getting $875,000.
Okay.
Also agreed to He also agreed to reduce his targeted annual bonus by half, which is a potential reduction of $1.75 million for each of the 2021 and 22 fiscal years. However, under the new agreement, he can still earn an annual bonus of up to 200% of his base salary, assuming he meets certain targets. That's a potential $1.75 million on top of $875,000 a year. Well, fuck that guy.
Well, and then you go into the stock options too that the guy has.
Oh my god!
And it's like, yeah, it gets insane. and like, here's the thing: if the rest of the company is doing well, and like, the employees are happy and things are running smoothly, hey, you deserve the bonus. Keep it. But when you're posting record profits and then you're laying off 800 people the next day or the same day, I think it was, and just kicking them out, and you're closing whole offices, you're closing whole teams down because you're saying you can't afford it, then you know what? You don't deserve the bonuses.
You shouldn't warrant a bonus. Yeah.
You're doing something wrong. If the state of something that you are overseeing is ending in people being laid off and having to curtail your development teams, you're doing something wrong. I'm sorry. And you don't deserve the bonus. You don't deserve the money because you didn't earn it. Yeah. So I mean, that's just kind of where I am with it. It's like, I think that people at the corporate level need to be feeling the pain of their decisions more so than the people at the development level, who are just trying to make the best product that they can, and they're passionate and they work hard. I think the people, at the corporate level, they should be feeling the consequences of those decisions that they have to make.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially if they're making them simply so that their profit margins are larger. It's one thing where it's like we have to cut, this many people or the whole company's in jeopardy. It's like, I get that, okay? Although that kind of is signifying there was a massive failure elsewhere, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I kind of get it. But no, when you're in a position where you are cutting, massive numbers of people because you want there to be more profit, and those people actually were important because they were doing something that was necessary, and then now you're trying to force other people to pick up the slack. That's, what are you doing? That's not how businesses function. And there's a reason now that Blizzard suddenly has a problem with retention, with talent retention. There's a reason that they're hemorrhaging talented people to other studios like Riot or, like a lot of these startups like Bond. In just the past few years, you've seen Chris Metzen with Board Chief Gaming, which is a tabletop gaming company. You have Moonshot Games or Dreamhaven, which is Mike Morheim's company. You've got Second Dinner, which is Ben Brode, who was responsible for a lot of Hearthstone success. You have Bonfire, I think Bonfire is Rob Pardo, who was once a big name at Blizzard. And so these competitive companies are popping up in Southern California all over the place, and they are made of former Blizzard employees who got fed up with things being the way they were with Activision, and are like, you know what? No, we're going to continue making games that we love, and if we can't do that the way we want to do it with Blizzard because Activision is getting too involved, then we're going to go make our own company, and that's what we're going to do. And I think it's a great thing that that's what they're doing. I think that Blizzard needs to start taking that competition very seriously. Sure, it's easy to brush off right now because there haven't been any major releases yet. But with that kind of talent pool, you can absolutely bet that there's going to be some really heavy hitting, amazing games coming out of some of those studios that are really going to give Blizzard games a run for their money. And if they don't adapt, if they don't get to a point where they re-emphasize the importance of their development teams, and they really start, getting back to trying to retain their talent, they're going to be in deep shit. So, we'll see. I really hope that they get through this period in a way that, they can continue to make great games. But, if their current leadership is in place for very much longer, I don't know how likely that's going to be. At least not anytime soon. Yeah. So, anyway, that's my end rant.
End rant. Hit the end rant button.
Yep. Exactly.
Get their shit together. That's a all-encompassing statement that can be applied to many facets of life that we've talked about today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's half hour to midnight on my side.
Gotcha.
Thank God I have a short shift tomorrow.
Sorry to be long-winded.
No, you know
I know.
It's fine. Did you have fun?
Oh, always have fun.
That's the most important thing that I look out for whenever I do these episodes. So as long as you had fun, as long as you just were okay with the stuff we talked about, then that is in my book.
Yeah, I hope I didn't get too political, but it's hard to avoid the topic, honestly, nowadays.
Note yourself, whenever I have you on, expect political.
At least a little bit. At least a little bit.
We try to keep it on track.
Right.
Sort of.
You gotta make an allowance for it, at least, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I hope you guys enjoyed this super long episode. Always good to record new stuff because I know it's been difficult for me with the pandemic because, I mostly bank on, talking about conventions with cosplayers or trying this new thing where, I'm just catching up with cosplayers or people like yourself. So I know that next week I will be doing an episode with Intraventus, who I had on the show previously. And this was back when she was still, I guess, involved in the cosplay community. She's kind of not anymore. because she's got her own awesome body painting stuff going on. So we'll get to talk with her to see how that's been blowing up for her, and I'm really excited about that. But in any case, Zach, if people want to go find your stuff, where do they go?
The best place to find me nowadays is honestly on Twitter. It's just at Zach Fischer, just my name. And you can find me on Instagram as well. I think it's all linked to my Twitter. I think I've got everything. But you can also look up my work on ArtStation. It's just Zach Fischer on ArtStation as well. So,
yep. And you can find me on Blue Lightning Cough on Twitter, Instagram, somewhat Facebook. I don't know why I made a Facebook page. I don't know why. No one uses it. I don't even use it anymore, even though I just started. But I've been streaming a lot lately. Right now, I've been going through the Mass Effect Legendary Collection. I've been blasting through it to the point where I think I'm going to be finishing Mass Effect 3 tomorrow. And then I'm going to be debating on whether or not do I start a brand new trilogy run through, and this time be a dick instead of being a goody-goody two-shoes. Apparently all the fun stuff comes when you be a dick. Apparently.
Isn't that the way of things? Way of the world.
Maybe I'll bang somebody else this time. I don't know.
Oh boy. I'm not going to comment on that.
Yeah, you don't have to. I've accepted. This is who I am. Oh, well. I'm a good person. Anyway, that's the show. Hope you guys had fun, and I will see you all next time.